United States Coast Guard, one of the country's 5 armed services, is one of the most unique agencies of the federal government. Established in 1790 under the Department of the Treasury, they were created to assist in the enforcement of tariff and trade laws, prevent smuggling, and protect the collection of the federal tax revenue. Today, they operate under the Department of Homeland Security. Their role as a uniformed service has expanded to 11 missions in all, to include coastal security, drug interdiction, aids to navigation, search and rescue, marine safety, defense readiness, living marine resources, migrant interdiction, marine environmental protection, ice operations, and law enforcement. Compared to the other services of the U.S. Armed Forces, the U.S. Coast Guard is relatively small, but even still, and despite their limited amount of personnel and financial resources, the Coast Guard still manages to perform its huge mission exceptionally well. As a matter of fact, since 2010, the U.S. Coast Guard responded to 22,226 calls in distress, which included vessels without power and taking on water, ships and people lost at sea, medical emergencies, fires, and accidents. They also saved 5,912 lives. It's interesting to note that since the establishment of the U.S. Coast Guard in 1790, 1,109,310 lives have been saved. The most noteworthy rescue over the past several years was that which resulted from Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Search and rescue operations alone saved 24,135 lives from imminent danger, usually off the roofs of the victims' homes and the tops of sinking cars. On our nation's lakes and coastal waterways, the Coast Guard responded to 9,334 recreational boating accidents that resulted in 1,408 deaths, 6,511 injuries, and $71.5 million in property damage. They rescued and relocated hundreds of local citizens from flooding houses and rooftops during 3 major flooding events in our nation's heartland. They seized over 400,000 pounds of marijuana, cocaine, and heroin that was being smuggled into the United States by way of high-powered fast boats, tankers, cargo ships, and cruisers. They also intercepted thousands of illegal immigrants sailing to the United States from Haiti, Cuba, China, and the Dominican Republic, many of which events turned into search and rescue incidents resulting from sinking vessels and people lost at sea. And the Coast Guard investigated over 4,500 marine casualties, many of which included collisions, grounding, loss of power, fire and explosions, and even death. In addition, the Coast Guard conducted 60,000 marine inspections of commercial and private vessels, facilities, cargo ships and tankers, oil and chemical facilities, and they responded to almost 33,000 oil and chemical spills, large and small, in our nation's oceans, lakes, rivers, and streams. All of this performed by the men and women of an organization smaller than the size of the New York Police Department. The U.S. Coast Guard, with its missions and roles increasing annually, continues to stretch its operational limits as a result of cuts in funding and manpower. But, despite the hardships, the men and women will continue to guard our shores and stand vigilant for the call for help and live by their motto, Semper Paratus, always ready.